This is Ink Game, a brand new Squid Game recreation on Roblox that surprisingly boasts an incredibly large player count at most times. And with the recent release of Squid Game Season 3, most of the recreations of the show have seen a large bump in players following the hype. But this game is surprisingly overrated for a number of reasons, but I'll explain all of that later on. But first, what makes Ink Game the most popular of them all? Why is this game more popular than, say, Squid Game X, which boasts a much larger game selection and actually includes stuff from Season 3? I'll get to all that in a moment, but I wanted to go through the things like the menu and other building blocks that I believe makes Ink Game insanely popular. Launching into the game for the first time, you're greeted with a surprisingly sleek and unique UI, with everything looking like it fits into the overall style of Squid Game itself. There's a shop menu that allows you to purchase a number of things. There's emotes to dance around when you're waiting for the next game to start, upgrades to increase your pushing power, speed, and the amount of money you can earn. This was probably the most notable mechanic that I think helped game players and have them stick around. And then the first of many mechanics that I think ruined the game entirely, and this might be worse than the super pushes, seeing all the bad glass panels, and double vote game passes. These are powers. And yes, they also cost Robux. Each one has a different rarity to reroll and offers a better power with each tier. This seems like a complete waste of 1, your hard-bought Robux, and 2, a waste of a mechanic of a game where everyone is supposed to have the same fair chance and opportunity as noted in the actual show. But now it's time to start the games, and I'll start by saying this game barely follows anything from Seasons 2 and 3, and even skips a game from Season 1 entirely. And before you say, Meeko, there was actually an update that brought more games in from Season 2 and 3? No, and here's why. The Season 1 sleeping area and the Season 2 and 3 sleeping area are entirely different. The first one is pretty basic, with it being much more tight-knit and having a more bathroom at your local pool feel. And then there's a second one with the X and O on either side with the red and blue lights, giving it a more divided feel and the overall size of the room looking much larger than the first one. Why would they bother making the Season 2 and 3 sleeping area when most, if not all of the games are from the first season? Why would you add the Season 2 and 3 games after the release instead of having it be the core focus of the game? Because clearly it was meant to follow the hype of the show's final season. But aside from that, let's get started with the actual games. Starting out, we get a really well animated intro sequence where we learn all about the game, if my team didn't skip it right away, but I'm sure it wasn't anything important. So to start, the first portion of the game and the show season is technically supposed to have you take a photo and then get registered, right? No. This game puts you right into red light, green light. Okay, that's not really anything wrong there, except for the fact that they make you take a photo after the first game actually goes through. Why? Why make it so that the second game requires the photo and not the first one? Are we saving on digital storage and calling out the weakest players so their photos don't take up any more storage space? But I digress, and head back to red light, green light, which I also have a major issue with in terms of its leniency. In many of the other Squid Game based games that I've played, if you're caught moving at all, you're done. No second chances and no health bar to rely on. This game decided to make it easier to pass the first game by letting you take over 300 bullets before actually dying. This isn't the worst thing in the world, and it's kind of saved by the ability to carry players to the end, creating a bit of a story and allowing the players the choice to save one another. So I ended up saving a couple people myself and passed the first game. After finally taking my photo and not getting the funny push out of the way mid-photo meme happen to me, we head into the second game, Dalgona, or Sugar Honeycombs depending on who you ask. This game is fairly simple. Just cut the shape out of the cookie and you win. With yet another well-animated sequence of getting shoved after 3 seconds of not moving out of the way, we finally get our shape. As it turns out, you can get some pretty interesting designs, like a Sackboy from Little Big Planet, that really confusing triangle from Season 2 and a Season 1 game by the way, and a few more designs that ramp up the difficulty. Luckily enough, I got the triangle, did it as fast as possible, and waited on the swing set for the game to pass by. As we get back to the sleeping area, we get some food, and based on what you select, you can either get a bottle of something and an onigiri, or a kimbap with a fork. Not really sure why one meal gets a drink and the other doesn't, but I digress. I didn't really understand the meaning of this at first until I realized that it was going to be lights out, a key moment in Squid Game, and actually did follow the correct timeline of happening on the night of the second game, which was Dalgona. After simply waiting on the bed with my fork, ready to strike anybody who'd dare to try me, not a ton of people got eliminated at the end of the countdown, showing that most of us weren't really willing to kill each other and have some humanity left. The next game on the list is Tug of War, a classic game that many recognize and has an interesting mechanic to test a player's skill versus some games having it be click-based. This game forces you and everyone else to complete a Dead by Daylight style skill check in order to get your percentage up, and each time you get the skill check correct, the arrow speeds up. But when you miss, you have a 1-second cooldown before you can go again, which can easily mean life or death in this situation. My team was actually super close to losing until it hit the 60-second mark, which doubled the power of each successful skill check, and not even 3 seconds after, we won. And head back to the resting area to wait for everyone else to finish playing. There wasn't anything to note after the last game, so we just head straight into the glass bridge, which has yet another continuity error from the show. There's one game missing from the entire list of Season 1 games, and that is Marbles. This game does appear in other Squid Game recreations, but I'm not entirely sure why they'd skip this game entirely. But it's really hard to tell why this game does the stuff it does anyways. The glass bridge game makes it somewhat easier to cross, with the additions of a game pass to tell what every bad panel is, or the other option which is some panels being foggy or smudged, indicating that it shouldn't be trusted. And because I'm so good at this game, I simply waited behind everyone else to jump across and followed behind them. And after only losing a handful of people, we still had a fair amount of people remaining. Now we get to one of two endings. Once the voting process had started, basically everyone had voted to leave. Now, I could go on about how there was technically a voting process in all of the seasons, but the first one had everyone end up back in the games afterwards, and the second and third one was more prominent and happened after every game, so we'll just say that it's wrong on all parts because 1, it wasn't meant to be voting at this late in the game in Season 1, and 2, the voting should have been more consistent if it was Season 2 and 3. But aside from all of that, they ended up rigging the vote and forced us to stay. But we decided against that. We decided that we would wait for the guards to come back, kill them, and steal their guns, and attempt to escape. So after eliminating a bunch of them in the sleeping area and grabbing a weapon to use, we were off to find a way out. Hallway after hallway had us fighting seemingly endless amounts of guards until we were essentially pinned. Nobody wanted to move until I decided to just go for it. And then died. But we still have some more stuff to go through, so here's what happens when you choose to stay. Well, it's nothing special except for the fact that you keep playing the game. But the next game on the list is kind of what pushed me to make this video in the first place. The next game is Mingle. Now, let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. But isn't Mingle the third game in Season 2 and 3 and not the fifth game in Season 1? So they decided to remove marbles entirely and completely change up the order of the games for what reason exactly? Just to say that they have something from Season 2 and 3 before actually releasing more games? But regardless, this game is relatively simple. Get into a group that matches the total number of players that the game wants and get into an open door. Unfortunately, the game wanted a group of 3 and we only had 5 players. So I was kind of screwed from the get-go and died. But I didn't really want to go through the whole game again just to reach the final game, so I spectated it instead, and as expected, the last game is Squid Game. The last game of Season 1, right after the third game of Season 2 and 3, and now I'm all confused and mixed up on what the actual order is, and I had to go into the wiki like 50 times just to confirm they're not going crazy and the game is actually wrong! After yet another well-animated cutscene, I watched the 2 final people fight each other until one is left standing. And the final cutscene was also great, but also a bit confusing. So I'll let you watch it out and see what might be wrong with it. Notice anything weird? The fact that the final person left with 2 big bags of cash and went to a hotel instead of being sent to their actual house and getting a credit card in the mail with the money inside. Now, I won't be super harsh on it and say that this game wasn't a perfect one-to-one recreation of the show, but if you're trying to back on the hype of the 3rd season of the show, at least try and keep most of the stuff relevant to the show instead of the most hyped games and scenes that actually happen. I'd also like to preface that I don't hate the game. It's good for its own reasons, the style matches the theme of Squid Game and plays well with the added mechanics like carrying a friend, pushing, sand throwing, and everything else. Same goes for the animations. They looked absolutely insane and I was actually in awe at the quality of them the first time that I watched it. But it kind of feels like that's the only thing that really carries the game aside from the actual games. Would I say that this game is bad? No. Would I say that it kind of feels like trying to back on the hype of the show with added microtransactions and not really following the show for the most part? Yes. I'd also like to mention that the developers of the game did work hard on it. I couldn't learn how to make a game like this or even make a game on Roblox myself, so that definitely gets a point just for the effort that was put into it. And if you made it this far, I hope you can understand the meaning behind the video and not bombard me with comments trying to defend the game for what it is. If you're going to make a game on a show, try and match it to the show as best as you can. And if you did enjoy this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Consider becoming a member by hitting the join button down below to gain access to a bunch of different perks, as well as a spot in the end member credits at the end of every single one of my videos. Thanks again so much for watching. I've been Meeko, and I will catch you in the next video.